developing African American leadership was something that Jimmy and Grace did that brought all of us to them. They attracted us like magnets, and we ran to them because they had a vision that made us feel, a vision that we understood that made us greater than anything that any media said about us as people, than any lies that had ever been told about us. When we were in their presence and struggling with their ideas, we felt great. And we had a vision of who we could be and a fullness of who we are and who we were and who we were yet to become. Jimmy has always given these speeches, if you've ever heard him speak. My students love to hear him speak, and I love for him to come to my classes so he can speak to the young people. And something about Jimmy's speech, somebody made a joke here a minute ago. When Jimmy gets ready to give a speech, it's already typed. I don't think Jimmy types it. And he has it there ready for you. And those speeches become history. They become a part of a word that will never be taken from us ever in life. One of the ones that I want to quote from to introduce this next section is a speech that was delivered by Jimmy at Medgar Evers College in 1985. And we made a pamphlet out of it called The Urgent Plea, a Call for Black Leadership. All of us gathered here today are confronted with a very awesome challenge. We face the life and death question of creating a new kind of black leadership for our period. A leadership different from that which we have had in the past. We owe a tremendous amount to yesterday's black leadership, because without it, none of us would be where we are today. And as an aside, you heard Steve Hamilton, you heard Reverend Scott pay tribute to some of those warriors who come before us. Without them, none of us would be where we are today. But reality is constantly changing. And what was adequate in the past is no longer adequate. Each generation, as Fanon said, must define its mission and either betray or fulfill it. It is because black leadership in the past confronted the most obvious contradictions of racism with such audacity and courage that we are faced with new and more challenging contradictions today. Contradictions that provide us with the opportunity and the necessity to think more grandly than any president or any of the greatest black leaders in the past could possibly think. James Boggs, 1985. Kenneth Snodgrass, 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990.
Looks like I'm going to be the only brief one today. I would like to just end this by saying, can we give another applause to James Boggs? Some comments in regards to the importance of the African American leadership, and I just want to point out that this is not the original manifesto that came out in 1969. I had a bunch of them at home to bring. I thought I had one in the car, but I didn't have it. So I'm using this symbolic of 1969 in regards to what it represented, in regards to being a body of material that raised issues in that of why America had the problems that it had today. And I think this pamphlet here is what was very important for me to read when I became involved in the movement in 1967. When the rebellions were taking place inside our city and there was turmoil all around us, when I had not the ability to look at why were African Americans receiving so many problems inside our society as far as crime, the way the question of the housing situation exists, the poverty that existed in our community. And those kind of questions I began to answer and look at when I came out of school in 1967 that I was not clear about. because school did not point me in the direction of analyzing the day's problems. It was more so a question of, if we don't understand, if we can't achieve, it was all our inability to achieve. It had nothing to do with the historical developments that had taken place in this country. So I became involved in the movement, working with another individual who could not make it tonight, Dan Aldridge, and we formed an organization called the All African People Union. And it was during that time of forming that organization that I had the privilege of meeting the Boggs, and also during the time that the Manifesto for a Black Revolutionary Party came out. And the reading this particular pamphlet, it was so important, is because for the first time in my life, and in the lives of a lot of African Americans inside this country, as well as Europeans and Asians, as well as Hispanic, that someone raised the question of where we need to go in this next century, what direction we had to proceed, and what we had to do. And behooved to have the gumption to raise the question of how important it is for African Americans, if this country was to move to a new level of humanity in this society, that African Americans would have to take the responsibility for giving leadership to the particular country, because African Americans were in the position of being in the bottom, and that if anyone could give any leadership to moving in society out of that particular position, African Americans would have to take that position to move society forward. And as we look at the various movements that took place during that time, we can see how the African American movement changed the foundation of this country tremendously, but we have not went further enough. And now we ask, and I say that we have to continue this struggle which the Boggs have brought this far, and will continue to play an important role in, that we have to say to ourselves, which I am very fortunate that I had the opportunity to meet them, because by meeting them have meant a tremendous lot to my life, and it's also gave me the opportunity to meet all of you. And I say in that sense we need to give all of ourselves an applause, and also give the Boggs another applause. So important because it challenged the whole question of society being very technologically advanced. But at the same time, while we could raise that issue of patting America on the back of being technologically advanced, being economically advanced, we were politically and socially the most backwards country in the world. Because what we did to arrive at the materialistic level inside our society meant that we had to oppress the entire race inside this country, that we had to oppress third world countries all over the world for the purpose of economic advancement. And until we challenged that, which is what was being put forth in the manifesto, that we could only move to further deterioration inside our society, that all human relationships would deteriorate. And I say again, in that sense, I'm fortunate that I had the opportunity to meet them, because the idea of African Americans being able to give leadership to this whole country was not being taught in our institutions. And from reading the manifesto and working with the Boggs and other people who I was fortunate to meet over this period of time, that reality that African Americans did have the possibility of doing that we were capable of giving leadership to this entire country, that we could develop self-esteem in that ourselves as the African American people, that it was important that we develop commitment and dedication. Was very essential in my life and African Americans in this country. So in that sense, again, I'm very important. It's very important to meet the Boggs, and that only speaks to the minute level in regards to their impact, in regards to myself and the African American community in this country as a whole. And I had pointed out again, I'd like to point out again, that I was given the honor of presenting the Boggs with this plaque. Which I'll read at this point. And it says, in honor of James and Grace Boggs, we, the family, friends, and comrades, say to you that your commitment to building our communities and transforming America is timeless. That when we talk or write of you in the future, we will always speak of your knowledge, your commitment, and your dedication in a timeless way. Your heart and your thoughts has been nutrition to our humanity, as we hope we have been to yours. We thank you once more for your years of struggle and commitment. Thank you.